Good morning, everybody. I'm very happy to be presenting to you today as part of the AMPS Barcelona conference, Urban Futures, Cultural Pasts. And I'm going to be talking from UCL, University College London, and I'm co-presenting on behalf of Jade Wong. Also, my name is Blanche Cameron, and I work in the Bartlett School of Architecture in the Faculty of the Built Environment. Bartlett faculty at University College London, and I've been there for 10 years. And before that, I was at the Centre for Alternative Technology in Mid Wales, where I taught for 11 years as we set up the Graduate School of the Environment there, which is still going very strong. So I'm going to talk this morning about nature-based universities for biodiverse, livable, equitable futures. So something that's very relevant and important to the future of all of our cities, and it is based on our natural heritage and our innate ability and desire to live and work with nature and natural processes and ecosystems for healthy, biodiverse, beautiful environments. So, as Gary Grant is always saying, cities are generally poorly designed, although everything may have been agreed under the regulations. Cities are hot, dry, polluted, impermeable, and lacking in nature. They're unhealthy, and they're affecting everyone who lives in them all over the world. We also have to live within these planetary boundaries, which the Stockholm Resilience Centre has been researching for more than 2 decades, exploring and understanding the impacts that we're having on the biosphere that regulates the conditions for life on Earth. And you can see there from the slide that obviously climate change is a serious issue. We're far in overreach, but you can see from the research that biodiversity loss is outstripping what we're able to manage in terms of biodiversity loss at the moment. And biodiversity, the ecosystem, the biosphere, is also our climate regulator. A lot of research has gone into exploring what we get from nature. This is a very anthropogenic kind of approach, but it's important because unless we value, in all the senses of value, what nature means and humans as part of that system, then it's difficult to write policy and guidance and transfer this knowledge to the built environment sector specifically. And while we're there, the built environment sector contributes at least 40% of climate impacts every year through the construction and operation of cities, and that has a similar impact on the loss of biodiversity, the loss of habitats and ecosystems. So ecosystems are essentially the benefits, the functions that are performed without sending invoices, but that provide benefits such as cooling urban heat islands, cleaning and filtering air, water and soil pollution, caring for us and the rest of nature, and also can help with, crucially, reducing energy demand, water demand, improving quality of life, carbon sequestration and so on. And that this is a very valid and important area of teaching and research, but specifically applying ecosystem services through green infrastructure, nature-based solutions to our towns and cities to provide these benefits. So not just researching, but applying that knowledge to practical application and implementation of green infrastructure. So what is green infrastructure? It's the network of soil, vegetation and water in parks, green spaces, streets and buildings. And it provides ecosystem services that we've talked about before, the storing of stormwater, the cooling of the urban heat island and so on. So in essence, this is typologies such as green roofs, green walls, rain gardens, street trees, lakes and other water bodies and so on. And this is obviously being applied as the global strategy for climate adaptation for towns and cities everywhere around the world, locally applied with locally appropriate nature-based solutions. So in Europe, that's been the policy since 2013. It was the environment strategy, and then in 2021 was ratified as the climate adaptation strategy. And in China, it's known as sponge cities. In Australia, it's water sensitive urban design, and so on. But essentially, it's all the same process. Soil, plants, vegetation, and water in the city to cool and clean and care for the urban environment and for its citizens. So we have also the planning policy, the evidence for the benefits of green infrastructure in urban environments. The policy in London, in the first London plan written by Gary Grant and Dusty Gedge, the Green Roof and Walls Technical Report 2008, was implemented as part of the London plan with support from people like Peter Massini, who was the GLA Green Infrastructure Lead for more than 10 years. And then the report on the left there, Living Roofs and Walls from Policy to Practice, 10 Years of Urban Greening in London and Beyond, records the impact of that 2008 policy as it was then applied through the boroughs of London, and over 1 million square metres of green roofs added since that time. Source control mechanism at roof level where the rain mostly falls, falls most immediately. The Urban Heat Island strategy for Vienna is an excellent report also to refer to. It has the full range of typologies and their benefits and how to implement them in an environment such as Vienna, dense urban environments, in a particular bioclimate, which many cities around the world share. The approach is similar all over the world, but it depends what climate you're in as to what soil, substrates and planting might be appropriate, and also in terms of structural habitat. The Ignition report on the right from Manchester details the benefits and also some of the estimated cost savings based on some serious research within the Manchester Combined Authority and universities. And we also have the evidence. So the work has been put to the public for years and to policymakers, and that's having an effect also. We understand the importance of integrating nature into all spaces, but in terms of educational spaces, we know that this benefits students of all ages, obviously staff too, but enabling that concentration, sense of relaxation, mental and physical health benefits, calming and connection, and has been shown to improve social skills and of course educational attainment as a result, as well as cooling buildings and improving the physical environmental conditions. So the Department for Education's Resilient School Site Strategy that I helped to produce with Gary Grant, Dusty Gedge and John Little, produced the technical output specification, which is now applied to the construction of all new schools across England and is available for schools that want to retrofit green infrastructure too. In terms of the actual benefits, the energetics of a roof, a standard roof, looks something like this. And because the roof is so much immediately in contact with the weather, the sun and the rain, it's a great opportunity to look at where you can have the most benefit on a building, or it's certainly where the rain falls and where most of that solar exposure is. So you can see here that a lot of the disadvantages, this is to do with the heat being re-radiated, which is essentially what causes the urban heat island at night. There's no chance for cooling down, and buildings continue as radiators through into the next morning, so that you see that daily increase of temperatures creeping up. No relief. This is why we're talking about heat refuges in cities now. Whereas with a green roof, you can see that energy balance means that you have the reduced heat radiation and the new provision of evaporative cooling. And that evaporation is coming through the plants and the soils, and that evaporation produces cooling in the same way that we produce sweat to cool ourselves down. The moisture will absorb more heat and reduce the urban heat island effect. In terms of rainwater retention, this is based on work from the German national guidelines. And you can see this is just to show that the kind of annual water retention, the percentage of water retention of the rainfall, between 50 and 60% of that rainfall can be absorbed and retained or slowed. And this is the key point, that when we have sudden storms, heavy rainfall, we're getting more intense rainfall all over the world, that is slowed down, that it doesn't rush into the drains all at once, causing the sewage overflow that we see in cities with combined sewer systems. Green walls also can provide substantial cooling. You can see here from the thermal imaging on the left, the benefits there that the green wall is reducing the temperature is providing a surface temperature of around 28 degrees, and that the terracotta or brick tiled building next to it is heading up into the late 30s, high 30s, early 40s. So a substantial reduction in the need for air conditioning or passive ventilation strategies even in that building. You still have the ventilation, but you're not using it as a cooling device so much. The green wall is doing that. So the Manchester report, the headline findings, giving the costing benefits, showing that the advantages aren't just in terms of environmental benefits are good, they also represent financial benefits, which is where we're seeing funding being released from budgets such as transport budgets or health budgets to pay for the retrofit of green infrastructure, which is what we need. Just some examples now of some of the inspirational projects that I work with students on the Greening Cities module at UCL. This is by Wendy Allen, who's a great biodiverse SUDS designer, sustainable drainage systems, looking at how we can incorporate these into educational spaces. This is a school in Shelbourne in England, where the rainwater is being captured as it falls and cascaded over the curved feature there into the rain garden, creating also opportunities for water play. There's also a water pump, a hand pump with water in it there, so that children can play with the water and understand that relationship that they have with it too, as well as with nature and natural benefits as well. So it's very useful to have drawings like Wendy's that can explain in more detail how the functions work of these projects and how they can be delivered. And so do have a look at Wendy Allen Design's projects online for some inspirational work. I just love how she works with rainwater and makes it playful. This is on the side of the school, into rain planters, and getting more joy and fun into urban design as well. It doesn't have to be glossy and posh. It can be fun and engaging, and that's also part of that whole transition of information, how to engage people too. So the Green Infrastructure Framework for England was produced through 2022 and launched in 2023 in January. The design guidance written by Gary Grant goes into the detail of green infrastructure and how it can be designed and delivered in different circumstances. And this is taking that London green infrastructure approach and applying it, or the green infrastructure principles generally, across England. Wales has a very good green infrastructure policy, Scotland also, and this is England's application which now can be applied as guidance for retrofit and encourage policies for new build too. Most of the metro mayors already have those policies in place based on the London policy requiring green roofs and walls on all new developments, which has now become the urban greening factor, which this is also based on, which is 30 to 40% of green infrastructure of the footprint that has to be retrofitted to the development. It has to be applied to the development, new developments, that is. But what we really need is a retrofit process and a means of paying for it. That's what some of my research at UCL is looking at now with Dusty Gedge, Selchuk, Chiddick and others. This is Sheffield University, who've been doing amazing work on green infrastructure approaches, the green to grey, grey to green approach, and so on, working with the City Council. This is the Sir Robert Hadfield building, which is being used as a test bed for different soils and substrates, looking at the performance and benefits provided, the range of benefits, the different types, which is useful to look at how we can provide different kinds of also biodiversity habitats, different species too. And at UCL since 2017, we've been looking at the Bloomsbury area, the opportunities for not just improving biodiversity, but also creating that climate adaptation strategy. And the new UCL sustainability strategy and biodiversity strategy also reflect this. While Bloomsbury Plan was published in 2022, and this takes a good look at the campus. Gary Grant and Dusty Gedge carried out a green infrastructure audit looking for opportunities across the campus. And this is embedded in the Wild Bloomsbury Plan, some key opportunities where buildings and landscapes at ground level can be retrofitted, with opportunities for research and teaching too, obviously. This is the Institute of Education building, which was part of that audit, and the proposal for how it could potentially provide substantial area of green roofs. Think of the amount of rainwater that could be reduced from flowing directly into the sewage system from hundreds of square meters of green roofs like that. If we're thinking 50 to 60% at least of rainwater attenuation. And green walls, what about the opportunities there? That's on the chemistry building, a substantial west-facing wall that gets very hot in the late afternoon. That's a great opportunity there. And looking at rain gardens, what we could do with that. And at ground level, working with Camden Council has a very strong green infrastructure approach, as do all the boroughs across London now, because of the urban greening factor policy and the green infrastructure approach that's been taken by London. As part of the teaching at UCL, I started this module 5 years ago now, the Greening Cities module, which is a level 5 15 credit module, a modest teaching contribution. But what I'm very lucky about is that although that's situated within the architecture school on the Architecture and Interdisciplinary Studies BSc undergraduate degree programme, it's accessible to all students across UCL as an elective module. So it's hosted by the Bartlett School of Architecture, but we have a great interdisciplinary group of students who come and work together collaboratively on green infrastructure auditing of a site anywhere in the world. They choose their own sites and then explore the opportunities for greening, for retrofit, and then make a design proposal, look at who might be involved in the delivery of that and the design process, and also the maintenance of it, and crucially the maintenance of it. We need more people who are knowledgeable and good at maintaining biodiverse green infrastructure, and those are the gardeners. There's this thing about elevating people and making them visible who do the hardest work, usually for the least money actually, and finding a way to pay for people to become gardener lecturers coming from a gardening or a biodiversity or horticulture background, but able to communicate that to others, which people like John Little, who managed Clapton Park Estate for 20 years almost in East London, is a brilliant communicator and has that knowledge because he has been driven to find out more and more about how we can design low carbon circular economy materials, biodiverse, structural habitat and landscapes in the public realm. So I'm very lucky that I also get to work with a range of people to deliver this module. So here you can see one of the activities that we do. There's Dusty Gedge in the blue jacket, taking us on a City of London green roof tour, accessing buildings like this one, the Nomura building, which the environmental lead there, Nina Swallow, is brilliantly developing as a whole process with the ecologist Mark, doing amazing work. So we work together, and these experts come in and deliver a lecture or a workshop. That's Wendy Allen, bottom left there, and Chris Bridgman next to her. And along the top, that's Guy Grant, Dusty Gedge, John Little, Peter Massini. So the people, some of the people, of course, the many, many people driving green infrastructure approaches across the UK, and who we refer to or their work. But specifically, these people have been inspirational in creating approaches that can be applied very practically. We visit John Little's Gardens Hilldrop out in Essex, 4 acres of biodiverse habitats, which I think if you look back, he's been there for 30 years plus. This is a research centre, essentially, that any university would be proud of having produced, but John's done it himself without funding or waiting for that kind of thing to happen. He's driven that through himself and created these incredible landscapes, opportunities for connected curriculum, which means practical application. So students here are getting hands-on filling gabions for structural habitat, great habitat niches for insects and other species, rodents, small rodents, mammals, and making something physically with their hands, hands-on learning. So you're developing that tacit learning, thinking hands, as Jade's dissertation describes actually very beautifully. And it gives an opportunity for students to discuss that research with the experts, in this case John, understanding what their approach is like and helping them learn research techniques at the same time too. And then Mark Gardner, who is Central Campus Operations lead, takes us on a tour of the campus, the Bloomsbury campus, accessing roofs and other places. Access all areas key. Mark's amazing, and working with UCL Estates, the sustainability team, the estates team, the operations team, the facilities managers, the unsung heroes of universities who work, the security people and so on, who understand and work daily with the infrastructure to manage and maintain it, are absolutely crucial partners in every project. So we decided to, as part of the connected curriculum, find a site. Hannah Biggs, who is the Bloomsbury lead within UCL Sustainability in the estates team, and she found this great site around the back of the Meditation and Multi-Faith Centre, which was really off the beaten track. Nobody really would know about it, or I mean, everyone knew about it, but nobody would mind too much if some rain planters were installed there. And that's what we did with the students. Wendy ran a workshop with the students and with the estates team, and then designed these beautiful rain planters that collect the rainfall and provide that cooling benefit and the biodiverse habitat. So just now, so I can take people on a tour of UCL and show them rain planters in place. Also at UCL East, the People and Nature Lab, run by Kate Jones and others, within biosciences, and CASA, Duncan Wilson has also a role there, partnerships across UCL. This is now a new, recently opened roof, which has also got opportunities for testing and research. And biodiverse installations, including bee sand planters, which is a fascinating opportunity to understand how rainfall can be captured by sand, how sand can hold water, perhaps as long, if not longer, than other kinds of substrates due to the large surface area of all the sand particles. And this year, we've been working on the student centre, which has a green roof, but it is in severe decline, essentially because the substrate is too shallow, which means that the sedum and wildflower mat that it was laid with gets burnt off in the summer. It doesn't seem to be draining very well, so there's a lot of moss, and it's not maintained because people don't tend to go up to green roofs that often, and because we don't have a biodiverse gardening team that has a specific responsibility to ensure that it's carrying out all the functions that we need from it. So this has been a project for re-gardening, essentially, adding biodiverse habitats to it, and we'll be delivering those through the autumn 2024. So thanks to UCL Sustainability as well for their support for that. And there are many other educational opportunities across the campus. In Mallet Place, which is a central pedestrian route through the middle of the UCL campus, could also do with interception of rainwater. There's a big sewer under there, Victorian sewer, which struggles to cope with the rainwater. And this is exactly where we can tap into that water resource, which is so vital, and provide the habitat for biodiversity, for people, for nature, all the benefits, but also the opportunities for testing and research, which is now also a strong part of the University of London's strategy. They're about to launch their own green infrastructure strategy. They have a master plan development for the Bloomsbury campus focusing around Torrington Square and exploring that opportunity to connect teaching and learning with estates and students and make that a practical application, and with local organisations and communities. Opportunities to research and monitor, and to create that knowledge exchange, perhaps with events, that how we can speed up delivery. So we're working on that together with a range of other organisations and experts, and with the possibility of creating a centre of excellence, other centres of excellence across the federated universities, 17 universities that sit under the University of London. And then that biodiversity monitoring could take many forms, but we know that we need to understand the impacts and ensure that they're actually producing the goods, as it were, functioning the way that we assume they are going to, but with a give or take a margin of error. So monitoring is going to be important too. But how can we speed up delivery, and how can we pay for it? Can we afford not to pay for it? In terms of climate adaptation and reputational benefit, I don't think there's a university in the world that will be able to attract students if it is not climate adapted and resilient, and that demonstrates the modern policies that we have to make the transition from a fossil fuel based world to natural systems, more natural systems, low carbon or zero carbon approaches, and that are restoring the biodiversity loss that we've seen happening over the last 60, 70 years. So I think we can't afford not to do it, but I think there are also mechanisms. Many universities have very large carbon offset bills because of the carbon demand, which is part of which is energy demand. And a large part of that energy demand is cooling. And so if we took just a percentage perhaps of our carbon offset bills and paid for the retrofit of green infrastructure, that benefit would be felt every year. And I think there are other mechanisms too, in terms of ESG, environmental and social governance, and as I say, transport and health budgets that will support delivery of green infrastructure retrofit. And that means that we have then the opportunity to carry out the training for nature-based solutions. I'm also working with the Waits Family Enterprise Trust on developing approaches for communities across the UK with many other partners, called Nature-Based Neighbourhoods. And it's focusing on skills training because, as we know, and the report on the right states from the Landscape Institute, Skills for Greener Places, we know that we don't currently have the workforce to deliver the climate adaptation through nature-based solutions that we need in order to become climate resilient. So we are going to continue to be climate vulnerable, and people will be at risk of heat waves, flooding, and so on, and poor air quality, until we do. So we need to train that workforce. There need to be good, skilled people doing that training, but also training of trainers process, and then the implementation. And that's where the strategies come in as well. So those are in place, but we just need to get on and do the training aspect, and then we can see the benefits, and hopefully we'll be able to, 5 years' time, celebrate better, healthier, more biodiverse environments for everybody across the country, and connecting with other universities around the world that are doing the same. So thanks very much for listening, and good luck with the rest of the conference. Best wishes. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.